Thanks for coming on short notice. As you all know by now, that the Houston Police Department's investigation into the incident that you're all here for, the officer-involved shooting and search warrant execution on Harding Street, we actually submitted a search warrant and affidavits that were actually sealed, and unfortunately somebody's gave them to the media, which is in violation of court order, which is fine. It's not fine because it's a violation of law to do that. But having said that, it's important for the community to know that what that affidavit shows is what we promised, what I promised this community and the members of this police department that has 4 officers that were shot, another one injured, and 2 are still in the hospital, including an individual who, as you can see from the affidavit, his actions in terms of his conduct are in question, and there's some serious questions. But what that affidavit shows, and I would hope that it brings comfort to this community, is that I told the community over a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, that we would leave no stone unturned to get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what you are seeing there is that that affidavit, the only reason it's public and it exists, it's because it's the Houston Police Department that's conducting a robust investigation, a thorough investigation, an impartial investigation into everything that occurred leading up to and during that raid. Now, let me just make something real clear again. We had reason to investigate that location. We have found no evidence that we were just there willy-nilly, that there was no reason. We had reason to investigate that location. I think it was 7815 Harding. So I want to put that out there. That's what the investigation continues to show that. Number 2, regardless of whether we had reason or probable cause to engage in an investigation and even get a search warrant, what that affidavit will show you is that thus far it appears that there are some material untruths or lies in that affidavit, and that's a problem. That's totally unacceptable. From day one, when I joined this police department, I told my people that if you lie, you die. I've been here over 2 years, and you will not find anyone that has a sustained dishonesty violation who's a member of this department. We will not tolerate that, and it is disheartening as we investigate this, that we see their problems. If you all remember last week or 2 weeks ago, when we had the press conference, and I said it was going to be the last one unless we needed to talk, that I pushed back on comments made, emotional comments made. Now I guess the labor around the country that think the police chiefs and police executives, police departments don't know what they're doing, can figure out that maybe they need to just be quiet and wait till things unfold. What we are doing now is continuing with this investigation. It is a very exhaustive investigation, but I want to caution everyone to not go from A to Z and making all kinds of final judgments on all the moving parts and all the actions that are in question here. Let me walk you real quickly as to what we're looking at. The case agents' actions leading up to the search warrant, the actual use of force between an exchange of gunfire between the occupants, Mr. Tuttle, and the officers. That's another piece of the investigation. We will also be, and we are looking at, once you find problems with an investigator's veracity, as we are finding here, we have to expand another prong to see where that leads us in terms of other investigations he has conducted. And as you can see from that search warrant affidavit, that we're going to get to the truth. because that's what we're working on. And we will report back the good, the bad, and the ugly. because we owe it to the suspects that were killed. We owe it to the officers that were shot, that were there, having full faith and trust in that affidavit. One that's still in the hospital with very serious gunshot wounds. And we owe it to this community and to the good working men of the Houston and women of the Houston Police Department to make sure that we see not just what's in front of us, but to have a very wide net. I was asked a little while ago, hey, should the FBI come in? And the answer is no. The FBI should come in when the police department can't investigate itself or shows an unwillingness or an inability to investigate itself. Having said that, I have been in communication with the special agent in charge here, Perry Turner, which is consistent with our protocols. And the public doesn't know this, but when an officer-involved shooting occurs at the state or local level, when there's a use of deadly force and someone dies, in most instances, the FBI and the Department of Justice opens up a cursory review to monitor the case. I've had this happen before, to make sure that the case is being investigated thoroughly, impartially, and consistent with the expectations of the public that we serve. And so if the media was out finding information that we had problematic facts and were ignoring it, then yeah, that's a real problem. But I think what the media found out and the community's finding out, that the promises that we have made are being kept, and that we wouldn't be here today with this press conference unless it was the Houston Police Department's investigation that led us here. Lastly, I want to say this before I open up the questions. What really angers me as a police chief that knows the collective heart of this department, and the only people that know our heart better than I do, is the community we serve. I mean, just yesterday, the day before, we have the President of the United States calling us on stage out of the blue to recognize the just phenomenal effort of the 5,200 members of this department and just his entire community. And here we are, less than 48 hours later, talking about one person. And I want to make sure that the community doesn't lose sight. We don't grow police officers on Perry dishes. We know that we have human beings and we are imperfect like every other segment of society. But because of that knowledge, we are vigilant. The only reason we even started looking for, or the primary reason that when that started, when we started looking for the actual CIs the day after this occurred, is because this police chief brought together his investigative team and said, I want to leave no stone unturned. I want a six-pack of the suspect, Mr. Tuttle. I want you all to go find the CI. So nothing was thrown our way in terms of people forcing us to do anything. We have shown and demonstrated that we are going to seek the truth. Lastly, when we finish with this investigation, including the target officer that you, I'm not going to mention names because these officers have families and I don't want to put their families at risk, and I would hope that you keep that in mind. I think it's too late for one of them, or for the primary one. But we have to look at the actions in this case, the actions in previous cases, and I'd already put a team together by Chief Lopez, who will take a broader look to make sure that we're not being myopic, that we look at our entire narcotic operation up there in terms of the street level units, that they'll be conducting a very extensive audit. But the reason I'm saying all this is that let's keep this in perspective. We have 5,200 officers, and I would ask that nobody paint our department with a broad brush, just like the community doesn't want us to paint community members with a broad brush because of the actions of an individual or maybe individuals. This is not indicative of the greater work that goes on here, and we shouldn't wipe out the excellence of a lot of dedicated people because of one person or two. Okay? So with that, I'm going to take a sip of water because I started my day at 3 a.m. and then we'll take some questions. Go ahead.
Chief, when you break down the new warrants, it's somewhat simple. They said there was a buy of heroin. No one can corroborate said buy. And the heroin that was ultimately tested, according to these documents, came from another location. If all that turns out to be the case.
Thank you for posing it that way because we're still not done. And
That would be criminal behavior, would it not?
Absolutely, yes.
And so, talk about that specifically. This is more than just policy violations, general order violations, etc.
Yeah, okay, so I can't, there's the stuff you know and the stuff you don't know. No matter what we end up with here, right, we know we've had a criminal violation already, and serious criminal violation by the individual that prepared that affidavit on the initial search warrant at the Harding Street location. We know that there's already a crime been committed. It's a serious crime. When we prepare a document to go into somebody's home, which is there's a sanctity of somebody's home, it has to be truthful. It has to be honest. It has to be absolutely factual. So we know already there's a crime that's been committed. High probability there'll be a criminal charge. I'm not the DA, so I can't speak for the DA. Now, the level of the crime, that's yet to be determined. We have to continue with our investigation because there's a difference between a CI didn't do the buy to the officer did the buy in violation of policy. Do you understand? You've been around Rogowski for a long time. You guys know the difference, but it doesn't matter. That goes as to the extent of the criminality in terms of the behavior, and that's yet to be determined. We have obtained search warrants and executed search warrants for a multitude of phones, cell phones, and we will be able to assess the veracity of certain claims through those records and through that data. And so I appreciate the way that you framed that because I think you've been in this beat long enough where you know that it can go in a lot of ways, but we know for a fact that more than likely the investigating officer will be charged with a serious crime at some point. What else?
How many officers now have been relieved of duty?
Well, remember we have multiple officers that were involved in the shooting, and they're not relieved of duty, but they're on administrative duty pending some of our policies and processes, and pending when we look at the actual do a more in-depth assessment of the officer-involved shooting. One has been relieved of duty that you all reported on before. That's been reported on, and the investigating officer is in the hospital. I don't see him getting out of the hospital anymore, but as a formality, we will be relieving him of duty, even though, quite frankly, I mean, it's really a formality more than anything else because of his condition at the hospital.
How does this affect, like, overall all the narcotics investigations? I know you said Chief Lopez is going to do a more thorough investigation.
No.
Are you going to put a temporary halt to some of this?
No, we're not.
Right
No.
now?
Hey, look, folks. We've got plenty of good cases going on here. We don't want to jump to conclusions. The fact that I'm telling you that we will look beyond what's in front of us tells you that we don't take anything for granted. But I know the work that they're doing in there, and the work is actually good work. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of pissed off cops right now. There are a lot of angry cops because when you violate that oath of office, you make it hard for 98, 99% of these cops that go out there every day that you all know them. You make their job difficult.
What do you think?
You've already asked. Let me go to somebody else, and I'll go back to you.
So
Go ahead.
Chief, the case agent in this raid has been with the department for 34 years, and most of that time in narcotics. How far are you going back with these cases?
Well, look, we'll go back for a period of time, and we'll probably do a representative sample between the times that he's been there. If this is an anomaly, we'll be able to figure that out. If this is a pattern in practice, believe me, we'll be able to get to that really quickly. I don't have any indication it's a pattern in practice because, again, Depending on what we can prove in terms of the interviews that we've already done with now I will now call him a target officer. There's a difference between lying about who did the buy and not doing a buy at all. And I think it's really important for the community to remember that we have independent information and evidence from patrol when they went out there for the 911 call, and we have video of that. Somebody's going off about, I said there was cameras or no video cameras. Our patrol, our raid team that actually did the raid did not have body-worn cameras, but patrol officers that were in a support role and containment had body-worn cameras. So I'm not sure what the issue is with that, other than the decision point that we have to make in terms of putting body-worn cameras in all entry teams. And I just came back from the Major State Chiefs, Major County Sheriff's Association. I actually broached the subject with not just my colleagues across the country, like we talked to you all about. We also broached it with the FBI Director, Christopher Wray. If we make the decision, then there's a high probability that we will move towards, for our entry teams, putting body-worn cameras on them. There's a high probability that we're going to move to that sooner rather than later. That then, when you have multi-agency entry teams, you can't have some without cameras, some with cameras. So we have to work through that. And I think preliminarily, my thought on that would be, if we decide to go to body-worn cameras, we'll either conduct the entries ourselves with no other agencies involved from the federal government, or we'll let them, if it's their lead on it, they can do it themselves. But there's a good probability in the short term that we will move towards body-worn cameras. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that there was reason to look into this location, and previously we had heard that a neighbor had tipped off police that something was going on there. What have you all found about what indeed is going on?
Well, look, that's like I told you guys before. The reason I'm giving you an update is because the court, somebody provided a sealed document, and let me be real clear. We have 2 dead people, and we have 4 shot officers, including the target officer. We owe it to those that are involved in this, especially those that may not have any malfeasance, our officers. We owe it to them to get to the truth. And the only reason that we seal stuff is not to hide anything, but to make sure we don't jeopardize a criminal investigation to a very serious matter. And so when we're done, I guarantee you that we will leave no stone unturned, and the truth will come out.
Sir, I believe that the warrants we have, we're told by the court system we're not sealed.
Well, I believe that is not true. We've got copies of it, so I'm not going to debate it, but that's a separate issue.
That wasn't my question. My question was, I'm just telling you what the court's told us. But anyway, my question was, what do you say to the families and the neighbors who, the first moment this happened, told us, all the media here consistently, these were not drug dealers, these were nice people. Well, they may have smoked some pot, but they lived in the neighborhood, we've known them for 20, 30 years. This is not who they were, and it turns out they were right.
Well, no, you're concluding they were right. You're making conclusions.
That they are
Okay,
probably
well,
right.
let me just say this. We all have seen people that murder people. We all seen people that molest their kids. We all seen people that have done some horrific things. And guess what the neighbors have always said? Oh, my God, I never knew. I thought they were the nicest guy. So I'm not going to go there with you, and I'm not going to make any conclusions on that until we finish the investigation. Everybody wants to go from A to Z. That's not the way it works. So
Apologize to the families or anything.
I've talked to the family, and I'm not going to talk to the family through you.
Chief, what could be a possible
Was there
motive in
ever
all this?
a tip? You indicated early on there was a tip. Was
Yeah,
there
we have
ever a tip?
we have a 911 call where our patrol officers went there from a woman reporting to be the mother of a young woman that was in there doing heroin in this location.
So there was a tip.
Yes, and that's a 911 call. We have the CAD, we have the audios, we have the patrol units that responded. So this was not just an investigator decided to go target a house, as far as we've determined so far, for no reason. So, so the bottom line is, we're not going to jump to conclusions because conclusions without evidence is just speculation.
Then what's the motive, Chief? What would this case agent of 3 decades experience have to gain?
I'm not going
Was
to
this
that could,
chalked it up to sloppy police work?
well, first of all, when you lie on an affidavit, that's not sloppy. That's a crime. Now, why he lied on the affidavit in terms of who did what, whether that was just laziness or not, that's yet to be determined. But you know what? When laziness includes lying on an affidavit, you're probably going to you're more than likely going to get arrested at some point, and we will have no problems putting, when the time is right, handcuffs on somebody that's violated the public trust.
Is there a possibility some of the officers were injured by friendly fire?
We haven't, at this point, I don't think there's any indication of that, but we still have a lot of work to do in that.
Are you guys looking into that possibility?
Of course, absolutely,
Can you
yeah.
confirm that any no-knock warrants or narcotics warrants at all have to be signed off by either a sergeant or lieutenant, not going forward for the intern?
Well, I think that already requires, my recollection, it already requires supervisory approval. Part of the thing that Chief Lopez will be doing in his review is looking at, do we need to tighten it up? But let's talk about that, because I know the New York Times a while back had a story on, not you, but the Times, had a story on an article about no-knock warrants and why they're, and how they're dangerous. I don't think when we're done here, after I had 4 officers shot and 2 suspects killed, that we'll be tightening that up pretty well. The truth of the matter is, if somebody flushes all the evidence, it probably wasn't because you have to not use a no-knock. You probably didn't have that much evidence in there to start with. And secondly, if it's that dangerous, we probably need to use a much higher, a different type of team to go in. So that's all part of the review.
Last thing, the original officer relieved of duty, who we will not name. Can you categorize his involvement or believe what his involvement? In other words, was he along for the ride on this, or was he actively in cohorts with the case agent?
That's part of the investigation. So I'm not going to characterize it. Oh, God, I'm not aware of any overtime stuff. Any of those, because there's so many rumors.
Well, in other words, there's a big difference between Officer A just writing Officer B's name down, unbeknownst to him, and
Right.
Officer A saying, hey, can you do this, that, or the other for me? when
You're
you
right.
not know?
That's exactly right. And there's a big difference in that. And I'm not going
Can you offer some clarity
no,
on that?
I'm not going to offer any clarity on that. I can tell you he still remains off, and he'll remain off until we're done with this investigation. Yes, sir.
Looking into the verifying that the CI had made the
But let me just say, in terms of the veracity of the initial, that piece of it, the initial affidavit, he had nothing to do with that as far as we can tell so far.
Correct.
Okay?
Officer B.
Yeah, yeah, not the case agent, the other officer that's off. So for the record, I will say that, in fairness to him and his family, as it relates to that initial affidavit, we don't have any reason at this point to believe that he played any role in that.
But the new affidavit is at least indicative that the case agent told Officer B to go get some drugs from the center console of his
Yeah,
issued
yeah.
car.
The
So
book-
that would indicate more of a involved.
That's the continuation of an investigation. That was after the shooting. That was after all this thing happened. Go ahead, Manny.
just on when you had to verify, you were verifying that the CI had made these purchases according to what the case agent said in the affidavit. I guess would that be just a standard part of an investigation like this, that you would just want to verify that this buy had occurred, and when you did that, that's when you found.
When you have when you have an officer involved shooting, would that
Or
be?
like, no, a case like this where there's a drug bust and you want to, an affidavit stated that a drug buy had been made before, would that have been sort of standard procedure to verify that had taken place when you're investigating incident like this?
Let me just say this: when we do the job right, there's always multiple people involved, and I can just tell you, there's going to be anomalies. There's not 100% process, but understand something. The problem here was identified by the police department. Nobody else. There was not a complainant. There was nobody coming in here and complaining. We initiated the investigation, and we actually have led us to this point. Secondly, we have auditing procedures in place that include integrity tests for our folks. So there's a robust system in place that we have. But there's no such thing when you're dealing with, if any police chief tells you that they can guarantee 100% that they have a system in place to have perfection, that person's lying to you. I don't think the human condition is imperfect. That's why we have to have these robust processes. That's why we have our integrity checks. That's why we have proactive internal affairs. That's why we have special investigations unit. That's why we have the civil rights division of the district attorney's office work with us, because we understand that that there are times when people are going to succumb to the imperfection of the human nature. A couple more, and I'm going to get going.
What do you say to the community who doubted this in the first place? Do you worry about
Of course, you know what? I say to those, we owe an apology to this community just for the fact that we lied in an affidavit. That not we, a person lied in an affidavit. And I'm angry about that. I can tell you he's angry about that. She's angry about that. Those officers that were shot are angry about that. And we absolutely owe them an apology. But having said that, I'm not going to apologize for things that we haven't determined did or didn't happen. I'm not going to apologize. You want me to, which is, you want me to say that we didn't belong in that house, that nothing was going on? No, we have not come to that conclusion that there was no reason to be in that house. We have not come to a conclusion that there was no probable cause, had we done it right, to actually do the same exact thing, which is execute a search warrant. So, but when we're done, the community will absolutely know the good, the bad, and the ugly. I promised that about 10 days ago, and today we're here because a document that really was documenting the actions of this police department, that document is very telling. And what that document shows, it's a police department that's leaving no stone unturned. That's our commitment. That is our charge. That is not only our commitment and our charge, it's our sworn duty. And that's what we're going to do. So let me just close by saying that to the multitudes of conspiracy theorists out there, to reemphasize, we had a reason to investigate that house, that location. That was not made up, and when the time is right, we'll release all that stuff, all those videos and audios and all the stuff. Number two, regardless of whether or not we had a reason to be there, the law is real clear on our rules of conduct, on our rules of engagement. And when you violate those rules of conduct and rules of engagement, there have to be consequences. And sadly, I feel really badly for the Tuttle family because no matter what we find, there will always be a doubt. And I'm not saying we're not going to find things but there's always, what can they have done differently? And my heart goes out to them because they have a lot of unanswered questions. But I told that family, and I got beat up by labor across the country, not understanding why a police chief was upset that, we're mischaracterizing all this. Maybe they can figure it out now and realize sometimes just because when you've run nothing but your mouth sometimes, and I'm talking about not Joe, because you see, Joe, his emotion got the best of him because it was his members that had been shot. But all these other police union people, they're out there talking all this smack. You're no better than the people that you were trying to criticize. They criticize you without all the facts. And you're over here trying to second guess a police department with hundreds of years of experience with leadership with not knowing a damn thing of why we were making it real clear that we're the Houston Police Department. We run this department. And again, like Gamaldi, it was his members that were shot, right? But those other guys, this was not their fight, and they should have minded their own business. And they need to go talk to their communities about why they popped off on something they knew nothing about. I think that that wasn't good on their part. So again, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekends. We will not be doing updates on this. I want to finish this investigation. Our team knows that it's a matter of urgency to finish it, but we're not going to take shortcuts just in the interest of making it short. We will take as much time as we need to get to the bottom of this case. So with that, I'll do anything in Spanish.
Still unable to speak physically?
I'm not going to talk about his condition, but we just... Sí, bueno, acuérdese que esos documentos que se han hecho públicos son documentos que fueron preparados por el Departamento de la Policía de Houston. Estoy bien enojado, tengo bien genio, porque lo que usted ve en ese reporte que hicimos, nuestros investigadores, pensamos que uno de nuestros oficiales puso mentiras, escribió mentiras en un documento a la Corte. Y ya sabemos que eso es un crimen. Ahora, no sabemos a qué nivel es el crimen, sabemos que es serio, pero hasta que la investigación no esté completa no podemos saber exactamente qué nivel va a ser el crimen. Es importante que la comunidad sepa que nosotros tenemos 5.200 oficiales en este departamento y que la gran mayoría son profesionales, están aquí para servir. Y les voy a decir algo, que están bien enojados, porque tenemos oficiales que están con tiros en su cuerpo por las acciones de un oficial. Pero también es importante que la comunidad sepa que nuestra investigación sí ha enseñado que teníamos razón para investigar ese hogar. No estamos ahí por gusto. El problema es que si pones mentira en un documento a la Corte, es un crimen y pone en cuestión la honestidad de esos oficiales. Así que los suplico, por favor, esperen hasta que la investigación esté completa, porque nuestro deber moral, legal, es para hacer todo posible para asegurar que sabemos la verdad. Lo bueno, lo feo y lo que sea, lo vamos a reportar.
¿Anticipan cargos criminales en contra del oficial?
Yo estoy bastante seguro que sí va a haber cargos criminales.
¿Qué le dice a la familia de esas dos personas que murieron? Porque al final de cuentas hay 2 personas muertas, hay 4 oficiales que quedaron heridos. Es bastante grave.
Bueno, es grave, pero es importante que también que sepan que la cuestión es las tácticas que usó. Todavía no sabemos a qué nivel es su problema, porque decir que había un informante que fue el que compró la droga, o a lo mejor fue él que compró la droga, pues sí compró drogas, tenemos que saber lo que ocurrió. Pero al fin del día, la familia que yo he hablado con ellos, mi corazón está con ellos porque van a tener siempre duda, no importa lo que hacemos, van a tener siempre duda y por eso le di me disculpé pero sí le prometo que vamos a llegar a la verdad porque ese es nuestro deber.
Usted mencionó al sindicato porque ciertamente los integrantes del sindicato se pronunciaron muy anticipadamente al momento de que ocurrió este tiroteo. Eso complicó bastante públicamente.
Bueno, mira, el sindicato aquí policíaco de la Unión son oficiales, son jóvenes, son sus miembros, sus colegas. Pero los demás en el país entero que comenzaron a hablar de cosas que no saben nada, a lo mejor ahora se dan de cuenta que nosotros sabemos lo que estamos haciendo aquí. Somos un departamento, tenemos cientos de años de experiencia de liderazgo, de investigaciones, y todo lo hacemos porque sabemos lo que estamos haciendo. Así que es importante que los sindicatos de las uniones de la policía que no empiecen a atacar a los líderes policíacos solamente porque estamos diciendo que no debemos estar hablando lo que estamos hablando sin saber todos los datos.
Para la gente que pudiera perder un poco la fe y la confianza en la policía después de esto, ¿qué les dice?
Bueno, acuérdese, mire, el ser humano, la condición humana es imperfecta, no hay perfección. Pero lo que estamos diciendo es, acuérdese que las acciones de 1 o 2 personas no son las acciones de 5.200 oficiales y más de 6.000 empleados en este departamento. La gran mayoría de nuestros oficiales son profesionales, son honestos y tienen un gran afecto por la comunidad. Así que, igual que les suplicamos a los oficiales que no pinten a toda la comunidad de color, la comunidad pobre, como todos son iguales, vamos a saber que la mayoría de los oficiales son buenos y que no pierdan la fe, porque no estuviéramos aquí hoy sin nuestra investigación. ¿Ok? All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.